You just let me know when.
Sorry, it's taking a second. All right. Okay, so you should be able to hit go live on your Instagram side. If not, it might take a few seconds, but
just did.
Okay, sweet. Yay. All right. Well, we are here with Dr. Mike Belkowski. We have a live AMA Q&A, however you want to call it. Ask me anything. You can call it all the things. That's all right, because Dr. Mike is here in the house, and we're so excited to have you today. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Mike.
Carrie, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I was able to pop in probably a month ago at this point with Dr. Leland Stillman, who I just love to listen and learn from. So that was a fun conversation. So hopefully I can add some value here as well.
Oh, I know you will. You for sure will. So I know we've had the privilege of hosting you on the full Life Lounge podcast recorded. And then I got to meet you in person at the Health Optimization Summit. So you are a wealth of knowledge, inspiration, information for so many. You're the founder of BioLite. So we're going to dive into that and all your products that you have. We have many of them within Life Market. And then this week only, we have 15% off within Life Market. So people can head to Life Market, purchase some of those goodies. And we're going to kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive on some of the products today specifically, but he's a wealth of knowledge, information, blue light, methylene blue, red light therapy, C60, many things. I'm sure we could go on and on. So for those that do not know you, Dr. Mike, and have not heard from you before, can you just give us a quick little background? Who you are, where you're coming from, where you're calling in from, all those fun things.
Sure. So regionally or on this planet, I'm calling from Stevensville, Montana, which is about 30 minutes south of Missoula, Montana, which is where I was born and raised. But kind of my background story, I'll try to make it as quick as possible. So long story, hopefully short, graduated from physical therapy school in 2016 with no intentions of starting any companies or businesses. My dream, so to speak, was graduate PT school, work a couple of years locally to gather some experience, and then travel to like Australia or Switzerland and work there for a handful of years, and then bring that knowledge back to the US. So I took a local outpatient PT job locally, like I wanted to. But after a couple of months, I quickly became disgruntled with really what it boiled down to from the system was insurances and really how they handcuff you. And again, this is just physical therapy perspective, but I'm sure this happens broad stroke across the whole industry. Industries dictate how you treat because of their reimbursement. Like if they reimburse for these set of treatments, yet I think my patients can get better with these other ones, I'm going to be handcuffed to be forced to use these other treatments, even though I know these ones can get my patients better. So there was just kind of this moral or integrity. It just didn't sit well with me. That I wasn't really being able to treat how I wanted to get my patients better as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to go start my own cash-based PT practice. So that was my first foray into the business world. 2 months of 2 months of practice outside of PT school, and I'm going to go start my own solo practice. So it was a kind of a daunting task, but cash-based, because then I'm not taking insurances. Thus, I can treat how I want to under my scope of practice. And this set the stage for, and I've always been a lifetime learner, so I love to learn constantly. And so this set the stage for me to learn or seek different types of treatments, different alternative therapies I could offer my patients, because Missoula, Montana is a very PT clinic dense town or city, one of the most dense really in the US. So I knew that to set myself apart, I had to offer some unique and alternative therapies, not just for the sake of doing that, but also because they're effective and efficacious and they're actually going to do something. So I quickly became an expert over the course of a couple of years in dry needling. And that's really why people came to see me by and large was dry needling. It can virtually reduce all types of pains. And so whereas the physical therapy paradigm is come see me for 2 to 3 times per week for 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll try to get you better.
Okay.
Whereas with dry needling, I could reduce your pain anywhere from 50 to 75, sometimes 100% in one session. So
Wow.
we might end up doing 2 sessions, maybe 3, unless it's a structural issue like a torn labrum or torn ACL or something like that. But if
Mhm.
it's just like a normal pain, you're gone within 2 to 3 sessions because you're pain free. So that's the power of dry needling. And so over the subsequent couple of years, I picked up cupping, I picked up hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I picked up blood flow restriction training. So I was probably one of the first, if not the first, practitioner in Montana to become certified in blood flow restriction training. And then the last one on the list, of course, is red light therapy. So late 2018 at this point, so almost 3 years after I founded my practice, which I called Proactive Health, and I had heard about red light therapy. I think it was on Ben Greenfield's podcast years prior. I'd heard
Yeah.
about red light therapy. I'd heard, about different companies, but I almost like scoffed at it because I had no respect for light at that point in my life. And so I'm like, red light? Are you kidding me? Like, you're telling me this colored light is going to do something to my, like, I just didn't buy it. So
Yeah.
anyways, I read a lot. Amazon always is recommending these books. And one that kept reappearing in my Amazon account was the one by Ari Whitten, the Red Light Therapy Guide. It's behind me somewhere on this bookshelf.
Oh, cool.
And that's one I highly recommend people should read because the first third of that book details the mechanisms of red light therapy. And the two that stuck out to me were reducing inflammation, improving circulation, which are the two main mechanisms of dry needling.
Okay.
So with my background, with thousands of hours of dry needling people and seeing the response people had to that was an immediate light bulb for me. Whereas maybe if you didn't have that background, maybe that wouldn't resonate as much with you. But just knowing the power of reducing inflammation, improving circulation for reducing pain, I was already on board with red light therapy. And then the cherry on top, of course, is its impact on mitochondrial function. So
Okay.
that was kind of the beginning of my mitochondrial journey. Because again, up to that point, just like I didn't have a respect for light, I only knew the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cells. But here we are 6+ years later, and now the mitochondria are kind of the focal point of really how I think about health and wellness. So that was late 2018 when I read that book, founded BioLight in early 2019. Again, at this point, I'm still trying to grow my practice, but I started BioLight really as a hobby. And to be quite frank, Carrie, I started it because during the same time period, my wife had just gotten into PT school. So I knew how rigorous that schooling is for 3+ years. I knew she was going to be busy.
Oh, yeah.
So I started BioLight again as a hobby and like to keep me busy while she was going to be busy the next 3 years. So it was kind of an odd combination of the stars aligning, if you will, that really is the reason why BioLight came to be. But then real quickly, I'll wrap this up. Long story ended up being long.
It's okay. Good
started
to hear.
BioLight in early 2019, and it was all red light therapy centric, and it was that way for a handful of years. And then around early 2023, around early to mid 2023, similar to how I had heard about red light therapy years prior on Ben's podcast, I had already heard about methylene blue years prior, again on Ben Greenfield's podcast, and it was a similar story. I think it was one of the co-founders of Transcriptions. I can see his face, but anyway, like they prefaced the conversation by saying, the synthetic dye, it does so many good things for your mitochondria. It's also an aquarium cleaner. And as soon as I heard that, my mind kind of just shut off because I'm like biohacking's cool, but like how far is too far? Like I'm gonna listen to this conversation, but I'm not gonna put an aquarium cleaner in my body.
No.
But again, it was a similar story around this time period in early 2023 or mid so. This book, and it's somewhere on the shelf behind me by Mark Sloan, and that's another book. If people are really curious, want a more deeper dive into methylene blue, go read that book because again, the mechanisms of action of methylene blue, and then the research, it's powerful and it's more safe and probably more efficacious than people would believe, I suppose. But if you're in the biohacking community, I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. But regardless, so you never know. So that's where BioBlue came into the play for BioLight, because obviously I have a bunch of red light therapy devices, and that's cool. But here's this other way to profoundly improve mitochondrial function. And there's a beautiful synergistic relationship between red light therapy and methylene blue. So it just made total sense to add that as an offering from BioLite. And we can get into more details about that. But long story short, and then C60 was kind of on the tail end of all that as well, towards the end of 2023, early 2024. Got into the C60 game for the same reasons as methylene blue, other than the obvious photodynamic capability between methylene blue and red light therapy. But C60, profound longevity potential, immense impact, positive impact on the mitochondria. And so that's really where I dubbed this, or coined this term, the mitochondrial triad, where outside of the obvious and foundational things that people must have in play, such as full spectrum light exposure, consistent exposure, grounding, mitigating things like blue light, especially at night, non-native EMFs, like all these things have to be in play, but ways to really supercharge and move your health and vitality forward very quickly and effectively. This mitochondrial triad of red light therapy, methylene blue, and carbon 60, in isolation, any one of those is going to do great, two of them better, but all three, I think, is one of the best ways to improve mitochondrial function. And just quickly, from a bioenergetic perspective, why do we care about the mitochondria? In a nutshell, the more energy you produce per cell, the healthier you're going to be. The less energy you produce per cell, the less healthy you're going to be. And the mitochondria produce upwards of 90 to 95% of all of the energy in your body. So their function really dictates your overall health and vitality. Thus, that's why I'm so focused and potentially myopic on figuring out ways to improve mitochondrial function, because anytime we hear of an apparatus or a modality or a supplement that improves your health, or we hear of some type of deleterious health habit or environmental factor that negatively impacts our health in one way, shape, or form, it's either that supplement or that modality is improving mitochondrial function, or that environmental toxin or that poor health habit is causing mitochondrial dysfunction. So that's kind of my view on health, is doing anything we can to improve mitochondrial function, because that is essentially the root cause, root level of wellness.
100%. Oh my gosh. Wow. I know you always like mic drop moments every single time. Mike. That's so cool. Well, and we do have some questions coming in, so I'd love to kind of get to some of those too, but that is an incredible just breakdown and like how you got into the whole thing too. So that's always, I love to hear everybody's origin story too. And, pain to purpose story typically, or, but that's right. I didn't know your wife was going through all that too at the same time too. That's a lot's happening. Okay. So this one I would love to kind of start with. So Julie in Life Network is saying, can you please share the optimal start here guide with us, including doses, frequency, combinations, sources, routines?
Is that in routines? Is that specific to
it's
everything?
Maybe let's start with methylene blue, and then maybe we can talk about red light.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's kind of like I don't even want to say the $1 million question, because it's so multifactorial. It's always n equals 1, all this bio individuality, but it's like, okay, at some point we need to have some type of rubric to go off, and then as your biology dictates, increase or decrease dosage, whether that's methylene blue, red light therapy, what have you. But in general, so for methylene blue, the typical dosage is 10 to 15 milligrams twice per day. That's what's been shown to give those nootropic benefits, improve mitochondrial function, improve energy, and reduce mitochondrial dysfunction, which reduces oxidative stress, which anytime you reduce oxidative stress, of course, that's a good thing. So that's the typical dosage, 10 to 15. And there's even been research where specifically for mood and behavioral disorders like schizophrenia and otherwise, where they would take that typical dosage, but then they would try 20 or 25 milligrams or 30 or 50 milligrams to see if there was any increased benefit if they increased the dosage. And what they found was that there wasn't any detriment, but there wasn't any necessarily additional benefit beyond that 10 to 15 milligrams. So you can, and it's still safe, but there's not necessarily an increased benefit. So that's where that 10 to 15 milligrams twice a day comes from. As it relates to red light therapy, and this one is actually a much more sticky wicket than methylene blue. much more multifactorial. In essence, because I can get really deep in the weeds, because that's kind of where I am with red light
Mhm.
therapy and the details. As long as you're getting consistent exposure to the red and to the near infrared light, because that's what improves mitochondrial function ultimately, you're going to see benefits. But if you're looking to improve specific conditions or whatever your health goal is, that's where you need to become a little more nuanced or a little more sniper approach.
Okay.
Meaning, for example, treating the skin is a very low dosage treatment, whereas treating the brain or treating the bones, things that are much deeper in your body, that's going to require a much larger dosage. And dosage
Okay.
is measured in joules per centimeter squared, joules of light. And so that's further confounded depending on the device you have. Because even all the different
True.
BioLight devices, they have different light irradiances or strength of light power, let alone across different companies.
Yeah.
And that gets into the topic of third-party testing. Because
Yes.
just like the supplement market, if it's not third-party tested or third-party verified somehow,
Throw it
you
out.
really don't know what's in the supplement, because you can put anything on it's not regulated.
Yeah.
And like the supplement industry, the red light therapy space, the biohacking space is not regulated. So anyone can say anything they want about their product, and no one's going to check them unless it's a
Mm,
consumer doing their own
mhm.
third-party testing, like independent testing. So all of that to say is, if the red light therapy device is not third-party tested, there's like a 95, 99% chance the light irradiance measurement they're providing is inaccurate, which
Yeah.
then makes it impossible to properly dictate your protocol, meaning for a certain dosage,
Of
you need to
course.
know the strength of the light, and that'll tell you the duration.
That makes sense.
So we're getting into the weeds
Yeah.
a little bit, but just kind of red light therapy, light is, it can be easy. Expose yourself, be intuitive with it. Overall, I think people are probably treating too long or too much. So I
Mm,
think if you have a typical panel, let's call it, 10 minutes is more than enough. I think
okay.
people doing 20, 30 minutes, like, that's probably overkill. But again, if you're specifically trying to treat the nervous system or like a very deep tissue, okay, then that would necessitate the 20 to 30 minutes. And then, let alone from the frequency standpoint of a single treatment, you don't need to use red light therapy every single day. Again, more is not better when it comes to red light therapy. In fact, you'll probably see more effective results if you do 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, versus doing it 7 days a week. So that's another thing to consider.
Okay.
But to answer the question, let me just give you a general protocol like that I would do.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
So I take my methylene blue, I take my C60 first thing in the morning. Again, methylene blue is about 10 to 15 milligrams. C60, just 1 milliliter, and that'll get you all of the C60 you need for the day. If you're going to do red light therapy, you want to time your methylene blue treatment about 1 to 2 hours prior to your red light therapy treatment, because
Mm,
one piece of research showed the peak plasma concentration of methylene blue is about 90 minutes post ingestion. So
okay.
that's kind of like the golden time, like 1 or 2 hours post methylene blue consumption. Try to plan for your red light therapy then.
Okay.
From a, if you're healthy and you're just kind of using red light therapy prophylactically or like mitochondrial maintenance, the
Right.
3 spots I would hit on a weekly basis, like in isolation. You can do full body, but like if you have a handheld device or
Yeah.
a smaller panel, I would at least hit my gut once a week,
Mm,
my
yes.
brain once a week,
Oh,
and my
yeah.
oral cavity once a week.
Mm,
And I'm not
okay.
saying doing those 3 times a week each. I'm saying doing them once a week, and maybe
One.
having those be your 3 sessions.
Okay.
And I think if you do that, you're going to get a nice systemic effect on top of
Overall.
that. So
That's
that's kind
good.
of my general thought process there.
Yeah, I love that. So then that hits on the oral cavity part then is that you have your toothbrush, a part of your BioLite products. Does that help with that to hit that, or do you recommend something else?
I mean, I think that counts. And so, just kind of like from a demo perspective,
Oh, perfect.
this is the light, and it's tough to really pick up on camera, but there's red
Yeah.
and blue LEDs in there, and this is the Illume toothbrush. But the LEDs, the light intensity of this toothbrush is not therapeutic dosage,
Okay.
because you'll be using it once or twice or however many times you brush per day
Yeah,
on a
right.
daily basis. So you wouldn't want a therapeutic dosage on a daily basis, kind of like I was talking about with the panels. We have other products that are like mouth guards. They're
Oh
called the
yeah.
Guardian, that's all red light therapy, and then the
I saw
Guardian
that.
Plus, which also incorporates blue light. Those are more therapeutic dosages, and those are the devices you would want to use in this paradigm I'm talking about of like
Yeah,
treating your oral cavity once a week.
the
Those are
trio.
the devices you would want if you're trying to treat something in your mouth. Whereas the Illume toothbrush, it's just a way to get the benefits of the red light, the reduce inflammation, improve circulation, improve mitochondrial function. Blue
Okay.
light is antimicrobial, so you're improving the oral microbiome and other gum health boosting properties. So
Mm,
that's just something where like a person who's healthy, again, just trying to do maintenance, I think the toothbrush is just a great way to optimize or just maintain uh, healthy oral
yeah.
cavity, which when you talk to like Dr. Dominic Nischwitz or other biological dentists,
Mhm.
you improve your oral health. It's a systemic effect. So I
It
think
is.
I think really treating your mouth with light is
Mm,
possibly the best way to dip your toes into the red light therapy space if you haven't,
I love that.
because it's easy, especially if you use a toothbrush. It's just easy. You're not changing any health habits. You're
Yeah,
just using a different product. But then there's the
exactly.
potential for systemic benefits for your entire health.
That's good. Okay, so I told you before we hit record, I got my red light toothbrush from you probably about a month ago, and I absolutely love it. It's feels just like the typical electric toothbrush that I typically have, but like you said, it's just like swap it out, and then now I had that added benefit just to help improve my oral cavity. So I love it. But maybe next one that I'm going to get is the actual device that you hold in there for longer periods of time. So does
Yep.
that one also help with teeth whitening as well?
The blue light would specifically because it's the blue light when you add it with a some type of a bleaching or photosensitizing agent.
Hmm.
That's what whitens the teeth. So the blue light, and that's a good point, Carrie. So the blue light in this toothbrush is not meant to whiten your teeth
Yeah.
unless you're using like a an agent that's going to help whiten your teeth along with it. The blue light by
Okay.
itself won't do that.
Blocked.
And on
Okay.
that topic, we're not too far away from releasing
Ooh.
one heck of a toothpaste. Like I'm not going to go
Oh,
into the details about the ingredients or
exciting.
whatnot, but it's potentially going to be one of the best toothpaste in the world because of the
Okay.
ingredients that are in it, and
Okay.
equally important, the ingredients that are not in it. Um,
100%.
so that's coming soon. Hopefully, within the next month or so, we'll be releasing this toothpaste.
Oh,
But
good.
so that's something
Is
to look forward to.
is there gonna be a whitening component in that that would help to kinda pair
No,
with the toothbrush? No, okay. So that's
no.
something still to add on then
So
if
that's
people
something
want to.
people need to consider. Bleaching your teeth, while it does look good,
Yeah,
can be a slippery slope.
it's true.
Um, so it just depends on bleaching your teeth. You wouldn't want to do a lot of consistently.
Yeah,
Maybe touch it up every once in a while. But that's not
okay.
something you want to depend on necessarily to keep your teeth white.
Yeah.
The feedback we're getting from this toothpaste, I guess to answer your question, Carrie, like there's not photosensitizing agents that would be photodynamic with the blue light, but the
Mhm.
ingredients that are in there do whiten your teeth. So we have a celebrity doctor in Beverly Hills. He works on countless names you would know from movies and otherwise. And the response he's getting with them and other people he's had given samples to is miraculous, both with just their gum health, their teeth, the teeth whitening, your breath, that type of stuff. So we're getting a lot of good feedback. So
Cool.
we're excited to really release that in the next month or so.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, well, let us know for sure. We'll shout it from the rooftops at Life Network to some of the latest and greatest products from you. It's almost like you're, a kid in a candy store, like always like creating new products all the time, or like the mad scientist that's just like in there having fun. So
It's a blessing and a curse.
yeah, I'm sure, but you can tell that you enjoy it too at the same time. Like we were talking
Yeah.
about before, like you're busy, but it's a good, fun way too. So,
Yeah.
um, on that, kind of, I want to hear some of your another one of your new products that you had mentioned before we joined, but someone had asked, "What's your most popular or underrated product right now?"
Oh my gosh, what a great question. Or most underrated?
I know. So let's do yeah. What's a popular and then what's an underrated one?
Ah, that's tough. Well, by far the most popular are the BioBlue capsules. I mean, both the regular BioBlue liquid, but then also just like the regular BioBlue capsules. So those
Okay.
that are not familiar with methylene blue, it's a synthetic dye, which is why it's kind of polarizing. Because it was not initially intended for human consumption. It was made back in the late 1800s to stain textiles and leathers and that kind of a thing. And long story
Yeah.
short, Now we're using it in the longevity and anti-aging space because it does have a profound effect on the mitochondria. It's one of the best electron donors out there, along with C60. But long story short, so if you take the liquid form, it would stain your teeth and your tongue a little bit, depending on if you just take it straight in your mouth or dilute it with water, what have you.
Okay.
Some people just don't like the taste of methylene blue because it is a synthetic molecule. So that combination of thing, and then it's difficult to travel with because if there's any leakage from the liquid version, like anything it touches is going to stain. Like even just a little. So the capsules kind of resolves all of those issues. There's no staining, there's no flavor, and they're super easy to travel with. So kind of with the uprising in the popularity of methylene blue, those two products simply by volume are by far the most popular. And then from the red light therapy component, outside of the toothbrush, from a more red light therapy on the body perspective, the cocoon is extremely popular because unlike these red light therapy beds that take up a lot of, like, especially if you're you have like a wellness center or even just in your house, no one has a space for necessarily a red light therapy bed unless you do, which is few and far between, I imagine. The cocoon is a flexible, full body. It's like a sleeping bag. So it's a way to get full body, 360 degrees. You can pretty much just roll it up, so it takes up a very small footprint in your house.
Wow.
And it's portable, so you could take it on the go if that's something you're interested in. So that's very popular, both among consumers and practitioners, the cocoon.
Nice. Okay. And then that one probably does not heat up as well, because I remember last time you talked about you don't like the two pairing together, the red light and the heat, like from a sauna is not
exactly. No. Yeah, that's a good question. If anything, and again, near infrared is more of a warmth. So I mean that's a good question because you're enclosed, but the heat it would need to get up to, I mean, we're talking like 100 degrees, 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you're inside of that, with the duration that you're going to be inside the cocoon, it would never reach that temperature. So that's a great question, a great point, Carrie. You wouldn't inhibit those benefits that you would, like if you're incorporating red light therapy into a sauna that is hot.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for clearing that up. And then in that cocoon, is that again like a 10-minute type of period? People are in there, 15?
No, that's a great question as well. So since it's like essentially a mat, two mats zipped together compared to a panel, which has fans that can dissipate the heat, these mats don't have that. That's why they're so thin and they're so flexible.
Right.
Thus, the light irradiance or the power of the LEDs has to be much lower than they could otherwise be in the panels. Because again, with a higher power, that creates heat, like internally, that would need to be dissipated. So the light irradiance of the cocoon is much, much lower compared to a panel or even a handheld device. But the thought process is, like, I use it personally before I go to bed. Like, I'll be reading a book or I'll just be relaxing. I'll be watching something on my iPad. And so I'll be laying there for 30, 40 minutes. And like, that's kind of what I would think is a typical session for the cocoon, given its light irradiance. So for those that are looking for more efficient treatments, that's the caveat where the cocoon's probably not for you. You want to look into a panel or something else. But if you don't mind laying down for 30, 40, 50 minutes for a given session, then it's a very viable option.
That's incredible. How many times a week would you recommend somebody to do the cocoon?
Again, depending on what you're doing, depending on your stress level. I mean, it's great for like post-exercise, speed up recovery. It's just good for, of course, improving mitochondrial function, which leads to essentially everything. Not to sound like a snake oils pitch, but so again, the paradigm of about 3, maybe 4 times per week is optimal. If you're dealing with like a virus or something like that, this kind of gets into a rabbit hole of like other ways to use like methylene blue and red light therapy. Because when I get sick with, or if I have the initial symptoms of feeling sick, like the initial symptoms in my lungs or chest, or the initial symptoms in the back of my throat, that type of, or like a head cold, I will superdose with methylene blue. So whereas from a liquid perspective, 1 dose is about a full pipette, maybe a little extra after a full pipette. And I'll do that twice a day for a typical dosage. When I'm feeling sick or the initial signs of feeling sick, my superdose protocol, and this has just been completely intuitive, but it's worked beautifully well over the years, is I'll do 4 to 5 full pipettes 4 to 5 times per day for several days in a row.
Wow.
So you're taking quite a bit more. But again, methylene blue is one of the best antivirals out there. So from kind of knocking that
Mm-hmm.
down, so what ends up happening is either I catch it soon enough where that sickness never comes to fruition, so that superdose works, or I might be a little late or a little behind. But instead of the virus hanging around for, let's say, 3, 4, maybe a
Yeah.
full week, it's like gone within 48
In 3 days.
hours. So it
Wow.
definitely helps with that type of a
Mhm.
situation.
Definitely does. Okay, that's super helpful. Someone did say, when should they not take methylene blue, or what person?
So the most common thing people hear, and if you do your research, you're going to find these things about not taking methylene blue with SSRIs. And based on what I've read, based on other people I've talked to that have either clinical or otherwise experience with methylene blue and patients or clients, that is greatly over embellished or over exaggerated. So that whole instance of methylene blue and SSRIs potentially leading to serotonin syndrome, yes, that's a legitimate concern. But again, that stems from like 4 or 5 isolated incidences where they were doing parathyroid surgeries. They're dumping methylene blue into the surgical sites, which is not
Oh, wow.
atypical because they use
Yeah.
methylene blue a lot for surgeries. But these people happen to be on SSRIs, and thus there happen to be some fatal events. And that's led to this
Gosh.
global statement of never combine methylene blue with SSRIs. So, not medical advice,
Mhm.
but just a little more perspective on that whole situation.
Okay.
Then you have the same ones like red light therapy, where if you're actively pregnant or actively breastfeeding, don't do it. Not because it leads to something bad, we just don't know. Same with red light therapy. Like if you're actively pregnant or you have an active cancer site with red light therapy, stay away from those areas until like you're no longer pregnant or you're no
Yeah.
longer have active cancer.
Okay.
Um, but with methylene blue is very anti-cancer, so that's a different story.
Mm.
So those are kind of the most common ones to consider as it pertains to methylene blue.
Okay. And then I would like to speak a little bit to the cancer part, but before we do, time of day though, is it evening a no for methylene blue, or stick to morning?
Mm. No, that's a good question. So if you want to be most I don't want to say aggressive because that's an aggressive word. But like if you're looking for the like most effective approach with methylene blue, then you do want to take it twice a day because it's out of your system within 12 hours.
Okay.
So you do want a morning dosage, you do want an evening dosage. And this is a great question because, well, if methylene blue is so profound for mitochondrial function, that's probably going to increase your energy levels. And
Mm.
especially if you're first starting out and you take that evening dosage,
Mm.
that could lead to disrupted sleep. And that's not a good thing for
Yeah.
anyone's health. So that's really why. So when I first started like introducing BioBlue to the market, and I'm kind of getting this feedback and anecdotes, whether it's from friends and family or customers,
Yeah.
and it's like people were getting almost this restless leg like symptoms with their evening dosage of methylene blue. So quickly, I was like, okay, we have to create something, or we have to do something about this, so that if people want to, they can take their evening dosage. And
Okay.
that's where I came up with the BioBlue Calm, which is a liquid version, but it removes the NMN that are in all of the other liquids, which is an NAD precursor. And while NMN might not be energizing, I mean, it could indirectly just by what it's doing in the mitochondria. So I just removed that
Okay.
from a potential energizing perspective. And then we added 4 herbs: ashwagandha, valerian,
Mm.
passion flower, and kava. And then we added
Oh,
2
wow.
forms of magnesium, L-threonate and glycinate. So all 6 of those in some way, shape, or form reduce cortisol and or help with GABA synthesis in the brain. So just really, it's like a heavy blanket for your nervous system. And so
Yeah.
what I found is that has been a very great option for people to allow
Just
them to take that evening dosage without actually promoting sleep versus disrupting it.
That's an incredible combo. I'm gonna have to get that one next. So like I just told you I ordered the sustained release one. So
Yes.
the next one that I get, I think I'll have to try the calm one. So oh, good. Okay. Um, and then will you touch on the cancer part for a
For
moment?
methylene blue,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I'm curious.
So really, so when you ingest methylene blue, it has this ability to go into your body where it's most metabolically dysfunctional, or where there's the most mitochondrial dysfunction, which would be precancerous or cancerous cells, it's going to go there and do its work first. And then inevitably, the vast majority is going to make it up into your brain, into your central nervous system,
Okay.
because your nerves are by far the most mitochondrially dense tissue. And the mitochondria just soak up this methylene blue. So there's been plenty of research in different types of cancers where methylene blue has had a pretty profound effect. And again, given how safe it is, it's like a low, all the things that I like to promote or educate on, whether it's BioLight or otherwise, it's low risk, high reward. And so red light therapy is that way. Methylene blue is that way, even though it's a synthetic substance, and that's kind of odd. And then C60 is the same way. All of these have, when used correctly, very low risk and potential for very high reward. And from an anti-cancer perspective, C60 is the same way. There's a lot of anti-cancer potential there.
Yeah.
So of the three of this triad, those would be the two to certainly implement.
Okay. And then thank you. That's super helpful. And we did have someone ask a question on C60. So should you cycle C60 or take it long term?
So that's a good question for methylene blue as well, and quite frankly, all supplements. I know people have their own thought processes, like 6 days on, 1 day off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or whatever. So people have their own, and I think that's valid. There's a lot of good reasons to do that. You don't want your body to get habituated necessarily to a certain adjuvant or supplement.
Right.
My perspective is, in this day and age, like, I don't think my parents, certainly not my grandparents, would have ever needed this back in their generation, like when they were growing up.
No.
We're in such a different world now. We have so many environmental factors, so many pollutants.
So true.
The whole life story, like, we're not outside enough, we're indoors too much, and that's a double whammy because we're not getting natural light. So there's a lot of ways we're disrupting our mitochondrial function. So if you are one that believes, like I do, that doing things in anything, our health habits, our sleep habits, everything, is more or less centered around mitochondrial function, then things like C60 or methylene blue are almost a daily thing. I think, again, you could argue maybe the 6 days on, 1 day off, or I don't know, 3 weeks on, 1 week off.
Okay.
But overall, I see them as ways to bolster your mitochondrial function in the presence of all of these environmental factors.
Very true.
Even me in rural Montana, I can't get away from these non-native EMFs. You'd have to go to the North Pole or maybe the South Pole. Like, it's almost impossible. So we're all surrounded. The food, like, I'm reading a book right now on gut brain health, and like, I know glyphosate is bad, but this book goes deep into it. We can't escape glyphosate. Which is a sad story. That's another toxin to the mito. So we're being bombarded, and I just see things like C60 methylene blues as profound prophylactic ways to combat these mitochondrial toxins, more or less. So basically daily, but I'm still a fan of, like, cycling maybe a couple days off here and there. But like, if you're trying to optimize longevity and wellness, I think basically daily.
That does make sense because of the day and age that we live in, and we're up against, EMFs, microplastics. It's like everything is around us, and that's not going anywhere. So it's kind of like a shield of armor that you're putting on inside your body. Like you said, maybe six days a week if you do want to take a day break or something. So that's really, really good advice. So I love that. This next person said, what is the quickest way to track if it's working for you? So maybe any of the things that could be anything that you have or take.
That's another great question. So, and this is for all supplements, or like really all biohacking tools. I think the healthier you are, the less you're going to notice with anything. Like, we all have deficits somewhere, but like, if you're pretty darn healthy, like I think a lot of us are in this biohacking space, we're always looking to improve, or like at least maintain for long periods of time. But another way to say that is, if you have a large room for improvement, you're going to notice, like with methylene blue or red light therapy or C60, you're going to have improved energy, like almost instantly. You're going to have improved cognition. You're going to feel and think clear. You're going to have more motivation, improved mood and behavior, better sleep. So it's all these things. Like, especially if you use red light therapy systemically, meaning like a full body treatment, or if you take methylene blue or C60, which again would be more systemic because it's going to go where it needs to go.
Right.
They're going to find your deficits. So if, like, you have pain in your left ankle, or if you have like chronic tension, headaches or migraines, or you're dealing with anxiety or stress, like these things are going to find your deficits and improve them. So it's going to be if you're at least in touch with yourself, you're going to notice these improvements.
Right.
But again, like if you're like very vibrant and have lots of vitality, you might not notice, like tangibly feel something, but that doesn't mean these things aren't working. You're just in this beautiful place of what I call mitochondrial maintenance, which I think
Mm.
is a place we're all kind of trying to attain for long periods of time.
True. That's a very, very good point. Yes. And I remember you spoke to that before too. And that totally made sense because we are all in that space, but there's many people who are just dabbling in it right now and they are going to see the effects a little bit faster than we would who are in this every single day. But it's that maintenance phase that we're in. We're continually trying to optimize and you might not notice those big gains right away, but it's still definitely doing wonders. So yeah, you could probably notice it if you take yourself off of it for a period of time.
Yeah, exactly. So and actually on that point, I meant to add, Carrie,
Yeah.
we are about to go through a series of studies on our BioBlue products and a lot of our
Ooh.
other health products like the toothbrush and otherwise. So we're going to kind of be jumping into the science space to help push this space forward, at least like the methylene blue C60 red light therapy space. We're going to start pushing out some scientific studies to either validate or disprove benefits or kind of some myths surrounding red light therapy or methylene blue or C60.
Oh, cool.
So going forward, BioLight, in the near future, we'll kind of be on the forefront of pushing some science forward as well.
That's super exciting. Do you have like a timeline when that's going to be happening?
So we're in the very early stages. I don't know like how quickly once we start a study, we'll be able to like have it done and like publish it, so to speak.
Okay.
But we're starting it now. And so we're going to have a bunch of different studies out there with the potential to complete. And they're just going to like now going forward, hopefully we're just churning out a bunch of studies for years to come.
That's cool. So is it more of like a clinical trial type of study or? Okay, goodness. That's going to be,
they're going to be legitimate studies.
wow.
So I'm excited about that.
I'm excited about this too. So make sure, please share all of that stuff with us so we can
we'll do.
Shout that from the rooftops too. So I know we've touched on a lot of your supplements and you have one of the newer ones that you had mentioned before we started recording. What is that one called? You remember?
So we initially released it right around Health Optimization Summit, and that was more for a pre-order, and that was out in the real world a couple weeks later. And it's another BioBlue product, and it's called Fountain of Youth. Okay. So it is, there's 6 pillars of mitochondrial function. So there's 6 different ways we can impact mitochondrial health. And long story short, and I can go through those pillars, but the Fountain of Youth has ingredients that attacks all 6 of those pillars, making it the most comprehensive or well-rounded mitochondrial support supplement out there. So it has either methylene blue or leucomethylene blue, and we can get into leucomethylene blue if we have time. Urolithin A, 3 types of mushrooms, the ones that are most efficacious for mitochondrial function, which are lion's mane, cordyceps, and chaga, shilajit, and then PQQ. So that combination, based on what they do individually, knocks out all 6 pillars of mitochondrial function. Thus, Fountain of Youth, I think, is a decent term if you believe improving mitochondrial function is more or less the Fountain of Youth in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so because you can usually see it in your markers and just how, or just how you're feeling too. Like you feel like you're almost aging backwards in a way. So, there's so many people that I know that are in this space that you're like, I feel better in my 40s than I did in my 20s. So, well, good. Well, we will have to get that one within Life Market as well, because I don't think we have that one on there. So that is good. Okay. So any other last words of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with, or any other products that you wanted to share, talk about?
Man, that's a good question. I just think, I mean, I'm kind of preaching. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but also I think we're just building a beautiful community here of people who are just dipping their toes, who are kind of in the middle, and then those who are like to the nth degree. Any last words of wisdom? I guess as much as It's awesome to promote products. And we did a good job of talking about the benefits of red light therapy, methylene blue, and C60. I just
Yeah.
want to circle back to not forgetting about the foundations,
Mm,
because if we
yeah.
do all of those things, the mitochondrial triad, in lieu of getting back to nature, if you will,
True.
encapsulating full spectrum sunlight, touching the grass, getting out in
Mhm.
nature on a very consistent basis, because I think we've
Yeah.
gone way far away. Then even these things, the red light therapy, methylene blue, C60, I don't want to call them band-aids, but um, while they're marvelous solutions, nothing
Yeah.
will replace that big ball of gas in the sky. Nothing's going to replace
So true.
getting the magnetism from the earth and the decrease in stress just by getting out in
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
Um, so I
And
think
getting
that's just, not
mhm.
to lose sight of that. Like, biohacking is amazing. There's different ways to improve health, but the foundation always needs to be in place as well.
Oh, good. I love that you touched on that too. So even, like focusing on good sleep too, and
$1,000%.
getting a good workout in, all of those things too. And those are all things that we do need to make sure that we're getting on a daily basis as well, in addition to adding some of these incredible supplements just to kind of continue to optimize for longevity so we continue to age gracefully, right?
You said it
Love
better
it.
than I did.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with my kids at this point. Oh man. Well, Dr. Mike, you were incredible. I want to make sure our listeners do know that you can get 15% off on the BioLite products. So there's a lot of them within Life Market. If you have any questions at any time on any of the products or red light therapy, methylene blue, C60, as you can hear, Dr. Mike is incredible on all of those subjects and more. So please make sure to ping me or him in Life Network, and we'll make sure to bring him back on again too, because we can do this again and again. I know.
1000%. I'm always here to help and provide
Oh,
information. So thanks for having me, Carrie.
yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here today. And we will make sure to drop the recording for this later on too, for those who were not able to make it live. But for those who did, thanks for joining us. And we will see everybody inside Life Network, and have a wonderful rest of your day. All right.